Hello and welcome to our webinar mini-series, Healing from Cancer, It's Not About the Fight. These may be viewed as often as you like and in any order. You may use the F11 key to switch between regular and full-screen viewing modes. My name is Dr. Charlie Schwengel, osteopathic medical doctor and homeopathic physician. Hope for Cancer Foundation sponsors these mini-webinars. This information is for educational purposes only. It is not meant to serve as or to replace medical advice for any health condition. For advice regarding the diagnosis or treatment of any medical condition, you should consult a qualified health practitioner. Through these mini webinars, Hope for Cancer Foundation offers a very different way of looking at and interpreting cancer, often with some very thought-provoking concepts. Let us begin. This is mini webinar number 3, the Reticular Activating System and Biologic Conflict. What do you think actually causes cancer? Could it be toxic lifestyle? Could it be genetics? That certainly appears to be a big factor. Where do we live? Just bad luck. Or could cancer be a response of nature, something that has meaning and purpose? The growth of tumors and other physiological changes that occur in the body that are diagnosed as cancer are in actuality a completely natural response to various forms of overwhelming stress in our lives. Here is why. We'll talk about the reticular activating system. The reticular activating system is part of the central nervous system located deep inside the brain and the brain stem. The reticular activating system is always on duty to alert us to situations or circumstances that need our immediate attention. This enhances our ability to quickly respond to potential threats to our safety or well-being. The reticular activators are one of the very first parts of the brain that begins to develop soon after conception. So, for every living person on Earth, the reticular activating system has been on duty long before we are even born. Actually, babies in the womb can become aware of stresses in their family-to-be. Reticular activators are a built-in radar system. They are in constant communication with all parts of the brain and nervous system, and they're on alert 24/7 to alert us to things that are familiar or connected to us in some way, unusual, abnormal, shocking, or strange, and most importantly, dangerous, threatening, or problematic. Reticular activators cause us to wake up and pay attention. Most of the time, most of us operate in alpha mode. Alpha mode is hypnotic autopilot, such as when we're getting dressed in the morning or driving a familiar route, such as on the way to work, that we do on a daily basis. Beta mode, on the other hand, is alert. Snap out of alpha mode and pay attention to this because it's important. The sound of screeching brakes, for example, the sound of a dog suddenly barking, or a baby crying at night. The reticular activating system is the body's natural response to stress. When something happens in life that's a major source of stress, and that event or circumstance is interpreted as a threat to one's safety and well-being, or even one's survival, the reticular activating system is activated and switches on to emergency mode. This causes the brain to activate its natural built-in response and go into emergency mode to help protect us and keep us alive and functioning. This is a completely natural response. Biologic conflict. When reticular activators have triggered and the mind goes into alert mode, and we perceive that event as a significant stress and that stressful event has no apparent solution in sight, then biologic conflict kicks in. That stress can become established in the mind as a form of what is called biologic conflict. This is a subconscious process. Biologic conflict is a state of prolonged emergency mode in response to a stress that doesn't seem to have a resolution in sight for the individual. This is an example in nature of biologic conflict. There is certainly a sudden and unexpected stress. It appears to be the loss of a mate. There is certainly no end in sight, but nature will respond in such a way as to help or assist the surviving mate to replace the loss of the other mate, which is a completely natural process, and then this biologic conflict will be resolved. The mind affects the brain, which affects the body. Biologic conflict is a process, a function of the subconscious mind. the emotional feeling of the conflict has an impact on the mind, which has an impact on the brain, which necessarily impacts on the body, and these happen all at the same time. Perception determines everything. The establishment of biologic conflict is a direct result of how we perceive and interpret the stressful events that we might experience. It is not the stress of the event themselves, but it's our perception and our interpretation of them that leads to the establishment of biologic conflict. Perception is a learned response. We learn to interpret stresses due to influences from how we grow up, from family, from school, from church, and from society in general. All of these influences and more contribute to how we believe we're supposed to interpret and react to the stresses of various life events. This is what controls the biologic conflict and makes them active. So tumors actually grow to help the body, help the mind, to resolve the conflict. As long as biologic conflict remains active, the mind tells the brain to tell the body to grow more tissue to help that body part respond to the emergency. This new tissue is similar to, but not the same as, normal tissue, and this new growth becomes what are called tumors. Tumors grow during biologic conflict. The same type of biologic conflict causes the same types of tumors to grow in the same organs and the systems for all people all around the world. The details are different for each person, but when the interpretation of the stress is similar, the biologic conflicts and the related tumors that grow to help them are also similar. So tumor types reveal the biologic conflict. The location and characteristics of a tumor reveals the type of the underlying biologic conflict. Tumor response is directly related to the intensity and the duration of the biologic conflict, not because certain tumor types are more aggressive than others. Interpretation is the key. The intensity and the depth of biologic conflict are always a result of each person's perception of the stress that they have experienced. The interpretation of the situation and the circumstances is very highly subjective. Because of that, biologic conflicts are never the same for any two people. But tumors are there to help promote resolution of the conflict. The result: the growth of tumors increases the natural function of the affected organ, and the reason for that is to help us find a way to resolve the underlying biologic conflict. This is always a completely natural and a completely unconscious process. So what about fighting cancer? Fighting cancer does not resolve the biologic conflict. Fighting cancer with chemotherapy, radiation, or surgery, such as conventional medicine uses, does nothing to address the causes of cancer, the underlying biologic conflict. So, as long as biologic conflict remains, the brain will look for places in the body to grow tumors to help find a resolution to the conflict. So, for a short summary, to heal from cancer, consider the resolution of the biologic conflict. The growth of tumors that we call cancer is actually a part of nature's way to help us protect ourselves and keep us alive in the face of overwhelming stress. Healing from cancer, then, depends on resolving the biologic conflict to release the stress, not on fighting the cancer. So, if you or a loved one were to be diagnosed with cancer, would you want to engage in a fight against it? Or do you think you would rather find and gently release that biologic conflict? Thank you for your attention. To proceed to the next slideshow in the series, exit this slideshow and click on the next topic of your choice. This is Dr. Charlie Schwingel for Hope for Cancer Foundation.